This is how I closed the 7K deal within 4 months of starting my influencer marketing agency. My name is Abad and I'm a 17-year-old who is on his journey to build the world's largest Muslim influencer agency. I've decided that I'm going to document every single step on this YouTube channel. About 2 months ago, I posted my first video, and that video was all about how I got influencers with millions and millions of followers to join my network. And even that, just the fact that I was talking to these crazy influencers who I literally grew up watching on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, made me realize how crazy this could be and how endless the possibilities are. So as soon as I posted that first video, I realized, okay, fine, I've got 30 to 40 influencers. I actually have to start reaching out to brands. So that's when I started building up my email list for brands. Basically every single free period I had at school, because I'm in year 12 right now, all I would do is I just research brands, I'd add them to a spreadsheet, research a brand, add to spreadsheet, research the brand, add to spreadsheet, again and again and again, until I had about 100 or so brands that were like ready to contact. And that's when I started sending out the emails. My emailing wasn't the best. Like, it was just me manually sending every single email. So then I realized my emails have to be more specific. So I started testing out different templates, like different ways how I can word a certain sentence, even the hook. I had to cater to a certain person that I know that they're gonna like the way this sounds. So I began setting up the emailing systems. I started researching loads of templates, and I started sending out loads of emails, because that's really the best way to see what works, right? You send emails, then you A/B test. Like, I knew I was getting better, but still in the back of my mind, I had the fact that I still had not closed my first deal. That was still a bit of a issue that still kind of demotivated me, but I knew I was so close. So I thought to myself, Abad, come on, lock in, a few more weeks, you'll get it. And I was wrong. It was literally a few more days. I remember the literal morning that I woke up for Fajr and I saw that email. Honestly, that was a crazy feeling, right? Because influencers, fine, they talk to me, I talk to them, I build a relationship with them. But seeing my first brand reply to me and say, hey, we're interested, send over some influencers to look at, that was crazy, right? Now, this brand was an upcoming company, and the CEO actually reached out personally to me. Because obviously it's not the biggest brand, I didn't have to go to their marketing department because they didn't really have one, right? So I talked to the CEO, we got on a few calls, and he was a really, really amazing person, and it's rare to see those type of people, especially when you're a 17-year-old. And this is one thing I learned. At 17, people will try to take advantage of you. Maybe not in the way that they're going to try to scam you or cheat you, but they're going to try to make you accept deals which aren't really worth your time, even though you're 17. I guess you could look at a 17-year-old and say, okay, what does he have to lose? Why isn't he saying yes to everything? If you're out there, if you're 15, 16, 17, 18 even, you're doing the same thing as me. You might be young, but you have skills. If you're out there watching this video and trying to follow these steps and trying to do the exact same thing as me, that means there's something special in you, and that you don't have to aim low. You don't have to settle for less. Anyways, enough yap about that. Right, so the deal came to me, he said yes, and immediately I found an influencer. I asked the influencer if they're down, they were down, I set up everything. Honestly, at this point there was a lot of back and forth. I didn't realize how much detail there is within each campaign. I had to send about 50 messages daily just to make sure that each side is happy. And eventually, finally, thank God, I was able to close a deal and agree on a certain set of terms and a certain contract. So the contract was signed, the deal was closed, and I made my first $200 from this campaign. And those $200, honestly, it felt like I made $1 million, because going from 0 to 200 is arguably the most exciting and fun part. Now you're probably thinking, Abad, you talked about a 7K deal. This isn't a 7K deal. I know it isn't, because this technically is my first deal. I know I haven't mentioned it before. Even in my TikToks, I only talked about the 7K deal where I made a 1K commission. But this deal was my first one, and I used this deal to get my 7K deal. Now, the way I did that was, I made about $200 from this deal, as I mentioned earlier, right? I used that money to reinvest in a certain software which allowed me to send emails on bulk. And that allowed me to take things to a whole different level. Before, I was sending, 20, 30 emails per day. And that was enough to a certain extent, but you can only reach a certain amount of people with 20 emails per day, right? When you get to 100 emails per day consistently, that's when you start seeing crazy replies, because it's all a numbers game in the end, right? With an agency, when you're just sending emails as someone who doesn't have much trust built with these people, you just have to send as many as possible and hope that people reply, because that's just the nature of outreach, right? So I got the software, I started sending out emails, and I started adding to the list daily, and at this point the list was growing, like it was getting super big, and I had to get some friends to help me out with it. At this point I started feeling like I actually had a proper system, a proper business. I had influencers ready to talk to, I had a sheet full of leads, I had a whole software ready. All I needed was to get that big deal, and that's exactly what happened when I got a reply from a big company. Like, so obviously I already had my first deal with a not small company but an upcoming company, but getting the deal with this large company was a whole different achievement, right? Because these are people that have worked with larger agencies much bigger than mine. I guess that shows that I was able to sell myself in a way that I didn't seem inexperienced, even though I was. So at this point, the first deal actually ended, and that was because the influencer wasn't. It wasn't really the influencer's fault. It's just that the views weren't performing really well on this campaign. So the campaign actually ended, and even though I made a decent amount of money, I needed to get the second deal, and this second deal really saved me. And also, really quick, at this point, something crazy was happening. I was actually doing my end of year exams, and anyone who's in year 12 knows how like stressful those are, because they basically decide your future. These exams basically decide which uni you go to, and I'm aiming for like top uni, so I had to really grind. So about 2 weeks I just completely left for exams and completely left for revision. So that did kind of slow me down with my business, but I'm still grateful because the fact that I was able to get really good grades motivated me to now lock in more on business, if you get what I mean. And another really interesting thing happened literally a few days before I closed this big deal, is that I got a reply from an influencer with 15 million followers. So there's different types of influencers, right? There's mega, there's macro, and there's micro. And I managed to get a mega influencer with 15 million followers. And I realized, right, this guy is super big. Every company would want him. And when I was brainstorming exactly what influencer to set up my first big brand with, I realized that this guy is perfect because he's likely to get views. You know, the bigger you are, obviously, the more likely you are to get a viral video. So I set up that campaign, and honestly, to begin with, everything was going smoothly until I realized how much that goes into a campaign, right? I came in thinking all I had to do was say, okay, this influencer here wants to work with you, give me the money for him, I'm going to take my commission and give the rest to him. I thought it was that simple, but it really isn't, right? There's so much that goes into it. Like, I never thought I'd be thinking about tax at 17. I thought like I'd have to wait until like after uni and then like, you know, worry about that stuff. But I had to make a whole like invoice form. I had to do so much crazy stuff. Made sure that the influencer obviously uploaded on time. That was a really big thing. In this campaign, actually, a few influencers just didn't show up and just didn't upload on time. So that was something I had to deal with. And of course, that does kind of annoy you, but at the same time, like, how could you expect to be given such an amazing blessing from God without any roadblocks or without any obstacles? So when that happened, I decided to just move on and just sort of, you know, push those influencers out the campaign and continue with the influencers that actually will work and will deliver on time. The campaign ended, the analytics were really good, they got really good views, and now I'm getting ready to do another campaign with the same brand, and inshallah that goes equally, if not more successfully than the first campaign. To be honest, you know, this video, it wasn't really much detail, it was just me talking about an overview of what happened. I said I was going to post consistently, but I didn't. And that's why I really had to make this video, to give you guys a breakdown of what's been happening so far. So let me know if there's anything specific you guys want me to talk about, and I'd appreciate if you could subscribe as well, because the whole point is I take you guys with me. It could be that you guys will be closing your first deal one day after seeing one of my videos and being inspired by me. If you guys want to come along on the journey, please subscribe, like, comment, you know, just comment random stuff even. And thank you guys for watching.